We're going to be going over one of our recent coffees that we just got. It's a Colombia Huila washed processed coffee. It's a pink bourbon produced by the Gasca Brothers from Finca Zarza. And it's an overall very tasty cup, kind of fruit forward, interesting. We're going to go live over our one of our first roasts of this and talk through our decision making with Sergi, who roasted this coffee. So let's get into this. All right, so we're charging up the coffee, roast started. Give us, in a nutshell, where are we at with batch size, but also charge temperature?
For this coffee specifically, and coffees that are similar to it, we've been using a batch size of about 6 pounds, so 6 pounds exactly.
Okay.
That helps on multiple things. Like that helps us keep a very tight inventory on things, but also it helps us create more repeatability where a lot of these coffees are the same batch size. So we have a system in place that allows us to roast coffees within a 6 pound batch. And it also yields, a classic about a little over 5 pounds for a 5 pound bag. The other part with the charge temp has been fairly consistent, again, for a lot of coffees in this range. And what I'm looking for charge temp is I'm looking for a turnaround point at around 165 degrees. So that charge temp allows for that to happen, as well as what we will talk about next is the amount of energy that we start the roast with.
Okay, groovy. And so tell us a little bit about, this is, a brand new coffee that's going into the roaster. We haven't roasted it at all. Where does your mind go with reference curve? Where are you starting? What are you choosing?
Yeah. Well, you can see from the actual roast profile right now is that I'm using the reference of the thermal shock coffee. This roast actually, when you and I talked about it, it's like, oh, what roast do we want to reference to? The thermal shock roasted very, very well. And it roasted very consistently across different batches. And the way we went down in temp was very steady and also got us to the proper end point of drop temperature. So I referenced that for that reason too. I mean, origin, same origin, so that was an easy giveaway. Of course, processing was slightly different, but again, our major point of conversation when we chose to use this curve was how did the roast end? And the similarities of how the roast ended on thermal shock, we wanted to reproduce on this Gasca Brothers coffee.
Okay, groovy. Cool, so we're chugging along. Not a whole lot going on here in the beginning. Give us a little bit of where are we starting out with gas?
Yeah. So I charged it with 5.5 on gas, which was slightly lower than the thermal shock, which the reference curve said 6. I started slightly lower, and you can also notice then my turnaround was significantly lower than I would want, but I was going to go with it. But the ROR kept climbing, so I looked at that and I said, oh, okay, it'll catch up. It'll get to where I want it to be. So 5.5, slightly lower than the thermal shock, was simply because it's a wash coffee, and I wanted to make sure that this coffee, the roast didn't just cruise all the way through, but it was consistently chugging along.
And that's about, just for reference, that's about 50-ish% of our full gas output. Yeah. So, yeah. And for these smaller batches, I think you don't need a whole lot of heat. You're just ripping through, and paired with our charge temperature, but also our charge power gas. We're still, this roast is 9 minutes, so it's still a fairly quick roast. So it definitely doesn't need more energy and more power. So cool. So what's your we're 3.5 or coming up on 4 minutes actually. What's your thought process? Are you just kind of playing it by ear? You're following the reference curve. What else are you kind of looking out for?
Because I already know that I want to achieve the same end temperature on this and probably similar development time ratio to the roast. What is concerning to me right now is the ROR is significantly higher, and you see, I saw that, and I'm like, okay, I need to bring down gas a little sooner. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to bring down the gas to meet to cross over the current rate of rise on the coffee according to the actual reference. So I'm going to start bringing down gas probably slightly quicker,
Okay.
so it meets up.
That's great. So we just turned on airflow, which is kind of on par with a reference curve, and we're just trying to meet the reference curve of the other Colombian.
Yeah.
So yeah, one thing I will say is, I think with these new coffees, when you're throwing it in for the first time, there's a little bit of uncertainty. You can't really gauge everything that's going to happen. But if you pick the right reference curve, that's kind of in the ballpark of where you're going with where you want to drop a coffee, it should be pretty close, you know? Yeah, if you can match like origin with moisture content percentage, with processing a little bit, it'll be in the ballpark. Of course, won't be exactly to the T, but I mean, that's what you're doing. You're kind of auto correcting on the spot. So.
Yeah. And so far, it's roasted fairly consistently. And when this happened live, I was thinking, oh, sweet. My roast curve, my actual roast curve that is happening to the profile met up at a fairly right point. If it would have met up a little lower or a little later in the roast, I would have been slightly more concerned. But at this point, I'm kind of relieved. Okay, we're on track. We're going to get there. And you can also see that is that, yes, the ROR was a little higher in the beginning, but it actually got us to where the turnaround temp was a little lower. So the bean temp of the actual coffee in the roaster caught up to the reference because of that higher ROR. And right now, I'm feeling fairly confident that I'm on track. I'm not super worried about the coffee not meeting my goals, especially the in temp. Okay, so now that we're approaching crack, I'm still on pace, but I have noticed that, okay, this coffee is the ROR slightly lower, so it's cooling down slightly quicker. So at this point, what I'm hoping is to keep on track, but then I do push the gas changes just a little bit, a little back or a little later, just to give it that energy. And then, of course, I don't know exactly where that crack is going to happen right now, but I'm gauging to hopefully that crack happens at the same time. Yep. It's going to slow down, and I'm going to then at this point, I'm gauging, okay, what variable is going to dictate taste the most? And it's like, of course, I'm not planning on going really much over. I'm trying to stay in the range of 400 degrees drop and 13% DTR. But at this point, how it's going to react after crack is going to determine on whether I drop according to DTR or according to in temp. And that's what I'm talking about there.
So, yeah, so first crack happened a few degrees later. And it's not that we're necessarily using, it's not like, hey, we drop all of our coffees at this certain DTR, but after doing a handful of batches and creating kind of a system, we kind of know approximately the pairing of temperature to DTR development that'll get us what kind of color and development level that'll get us. So that just a little context to what Sergi just said. So we're cruising along. It's coming down heavily right now with the ROR, and I think we're about to wrap up the roast here. Where we dropping this at?
400, or right before 400. So we hit about 10% DTR and 400 degrees. A few things happened. Is the roast is going consistently, but then if you look at what happened after crack, it basically had more energy than the thermal shock. And that for me is, again, like, I should have anticipated that a little better, but the way it recovered is I said, okay, my non-negotiable is I want to drop this coffee at 400 degrees. I'm going to drop it. Yes, 10% isn't exactly what I was looking for DTR, but this will give us a good reference and a good understanding of what this coffee has and what changes do we make in the following roast of it.
We have some of this coffee brewed up, but what are you picking up here?
I think mango was kind of like the first thing that hit me. That little bit of tropical fruit, that mango, almost like a creamy essence to it, but just that mango like hit really, really hard. And then following that was the lime, this nice juicy acidity that just followed right next step. I'm not saying it doesn't have that lime majorly on the aftertaste. I think the whole berry thing comes out on the aftertaste, whether raspberry, strawberry, in that range on the aftertaste. And then the whole coffee together, I feel like, and it tastes like it's held up together with florality. It's just that kind of overarching kind of flavor that holds everything together and adds that dose of complexity to it. You cupped it blindly. You gave me feedback. I brewed it at home. And actually, we were both pleasantly surprised. We're like, what? This is wild. And when we measured it on our color reader, it hit the range of color that we were very happy with.
Right.
So sometimes like numbers like that, like DTR, drop temp, sometimes they can be slightly deceiving. But at the end of the day, like, taste is king. We tasted it, we cupped it, and we said, hey, this coffee has what we want out of it. And this coffee is actually, this roast profile is actually making this coffee taste how we believe it should taste like.
That's a wrap. If you have any questions, you're wondering about some of our other decision-making process for a roast, feel free to drop them down in the comments below. But otherwise, if you want to pick up a bag of this coffee, either you can pre-order it or maybe it's already launched when this video is live. Friends, thank you so much for watching another video. And as we always say, remember, reflect what's good.